Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much for your candor. It's always refreshing giving the enormous responsibility that you have and just how important revenue is for the functioning of our government. That's why, of course, we were very much alarmed when this committee voted to cut $80 billion out of funding to the IRS. What kind of an impact would a cut like that have, especially at this time when we're concerned about the federal deficit? What kind of a cut would that have, especially, you've articulated very well, trying to keep pace with all the technological changes that you're going to, while at the same time humanizing the IRS through your call centers and the ability for people to have direct contact with a human being.
Yeah, I mean, our budget was cut year over year between 2010 and 2022. If you add all that up, it's a 25% cut. Our staffing size shrunk to the same size it was in the 1970s. But over those same 12 years, the tax system grew and got a lot more complicated, and we have a lot more to do. Tens of millions of more filers, thousands of changes to the tax codes, new programs, new activities, and a very different world. A gig economy where we used to not have a gig economy, and more global globalization, movement of money, new currencies. And it's just a dramatically different world. So when you take those two together and you underinvest over a period of 12 years, while at the same time the job to manage the tax system grows, it's not a good formula. It leads to underperformance. And what I'm trying to emphasize here is the people that suffer are taxpayers. They suffer because the tax laws still exist. They still have these responsibilities, and it's a stressful experience. And when a problem emerges, if they can't get clarity from the IRS, if they can't get through to us, if they can't get their tax issue resolved, it weighs on them, it's burdensome for them, and it's stressful for them. And that's what's so heartbreaking about an underfunded tax agency. It means that we're not answering the phone. It means that our walk-in centers are shuttered, and it means that our digital tools are stagnating. And that's what it means when you describe, let's pull back the IRS funding. It means that the IRS won't be able to function and help you. And if you're not pulling back the tax laws and the tax responsibilities, but you're pulling back the ability for the IRS to serve taxpayers, then the ultimate harm is to the taxpayers themselves. And that's my impassioned plea to make sure that we don't harm taxpayers by making it harder for the IRS to help them.
I think you've articulated that very well. What I'm interested in as well is, because of the sophistication as we go forward, what is the IRS up against when you're dealing with major corporations or people with great wealth? What does it look like inside the IRS when you're dealing with a battery of attorneys, accountants, and consultants that are going up against government employees?
Well, I start with the volume, right? When you look at the number of audit personnel we had the day the Inflation Reduction Act was passed versus the number of the highest wealth filers in the United States. And I'm not talking about just above 400,000. I'm talking about the millionaires, the corporations with $250 million in assets. We break it into cohorts. And at the moment the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, we had one auditor for every 150 of the wealthiest taxpayers in the U.S. And these tax returns are long and complicated, thousands of pages, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pages. So I like people to picture that one IRS auditor or examiner backing in 150 truckloads of paper saying, I'll review all that, that's my job. So it's a real volume challenge. So we had to hire more personnel to evaluate these returns, but also the complicated financial structures, the introduction of new currencies, the more movement of money into international tax jurisdictions, the proliferation of tax havens, all of it, we have to keep up with it. Exactly. It's an investment that we have to make in our subject matter expertise, It's investment that we have to make in our analytics and our predictive modeling, because here's the other issue. If we don't invest smartly, we just start pulling audits, we're going to end up pulling audits from people that are following the laws more regularly and then adding burden to them when they're doing what they're supposed to do. So precision is actually very important here, and you have to invest to get that precision.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should do a hearing at some point too on what artificial intelligence means and what it will mean to our agencies, especially those that are guarding our privacy issues as well. But thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Thank you for your integrity and your candor.